But naturally, okay, Rutgers gave Stony Brook a scare. Let's be honest, guys. And they did indeed prevail. The Seawolves kind of did it the way they did the previous game in the NCAA, the opening round game, by just basically shutting Rutgers down and, sneaking a goal in every now and then and pulling out an 11-7 victory. Matt Kearns, you were in on the broadcast with Greg, and quite an experience for you. Your very first broadcasts as a staffer on WUSB happened to be NCAA tournament games, and some people around here are a little bit jealous of that, but you did a great job, and not only that, you got to witness some excellent lacrosse.
Oh, yeah. No, it was a ton of fun and a great game to be able to call. For Stony Brook, I think this is probably the biggest point and the biggest, the best player on the field today was Charlie Campbell in between the pipes. She was amazing. And, really throughout the whole game, they tightened it up in the second half, but Rutgers was really taking it to the Stony Brook defense, as we know, the best scoring defense in the nation. And Rutgers was finding holes, but time and time again, Charlie Campbell bailed them out. And, they really have to give her a pat on the back because she played exceptional, not only just on the field, but in those free position shots that Rutgers had. And they had a couple of very good opportunities, and she shut it down very quickly. She was the real X factor today.
Absolutely. And that's what they signed her up for, basically, her transferring in during the offseason, was a big reason was for those moments like that. Now, this isn't taking anything away from also, the ability she has, but for Campbell, it was adding not only more experience to this team and the goaltending tandem, but also, again, just that background, that intensity she brings. It's really tough to match. This is someone who is very accredited, obviously ACC experience, so Campbell really doesn't face too much pressure, I would say, in these types of matchups where you're going up against, top 10, top 15 teams. I think Rutgers was 12, entering today. But, Campbell, as you said, was a player of the game for sure this game. Arguably could have been as well in the game against Drexel just because of how good she was stopping shots. But she's someone who I thought entering the end of the season, was a bit up and down, wasn't playing as much because you saw Halsell in the net more. But since really the Albany game, Campbell's been on fire. And it's arguable that Campbell's the best goalie in the NCAA right now, just in terms of the level of competition she's facing and how Campbell's answering to that. Matt.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, she
go ahead.
I know, right? She played really well, and she was talking, she was asked about I was able to catch some of the post-game conference, and she was asked about the, going up against North Carolina next week, and she's used to that, playing at Virginia in the ACC for 4 years, going down to, was it Dorrance Field, and she's very familiar with the grass field. She knows how North Carolina plays. She was really, really excited to get going there. And yeah, she played stellar. When they asked Haley Dillon about it, when one of the, I don't remember who it was, had asked, said, defense was struggling in the first half. Haley, what kind of helped you focus up in the second half? And she said it was Charlie who kept us in tune throughout the whole thing, kept us calm, cool, collected, and kept making some big time saves. So it'll be interesting to see what Joe Spallina decides to do with the defense against Carolina, because in that sort of high pressure press, Rutgers was able to hit a lot of skip passes and just find holes and find the open player. And I think North Carolina is going to be able to do that even better. I'd like to see if they stick with that, if they settle it down a little bit and play maybe a more conservative style of defense. So it'll be interesting to see what he does there, because they definitely got exposed a little bit.
Absolutely. And the score was 7-5 at the half. And, it was unlike that game against Drexel earlier where, after the first half, it was close. It was 7-4 on Friday, but the defense locked Drexel down. The offense scored 9 straight. You didn't have that here. Rutgers at least took the lead, or at least tied it in the third period. And Stony Brook was able to add towards the bottom half of that third period, ultimately pulled away, shut them down the fourth. But, Yeah, the defense definitely looked weaker today compared to Friday's easy win 16-4. And as you're saying, you're going up against the best team in the nation in UNC, undefeated, the best offense, especially with players like Jamie Ortega, 104 points, 64 of those being goals. Someone who's unstoppable, and it's so tough to defend, especially on the ride, in transition. And for Stony Brook, offensively, we know, their pace. They could be conservative on offense, but you're absolutely right, Matt. Just on the defensive side, maybe they do want to, take a step back a little more. Maybe press hard towards the back half of the field and midfield as opposed to really ride through and through because of those odd man opportunities or those breakout opportunities that we saw Rutgers utilize today. Where, as you said, if it wasn't for a hot goaltender in Campbell, they may have had more goals and it would have been an even tighter game, Matt.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, when I was talking with Greg on the on air, I said if it wasn't for Charlie Campbell and, because Rutgers they had at least 5 or 6 free play opportunities, and a lot of them they got really good shots off the free position plays. And if it wasn't for Campbell making an amazing save, this game could have easily been tied in the second half, especially into that fourth quarter, and Rutgers could even have the lead. I mean, that Rutgers team really, really hustled, and they had some mistakes that obviously led to them losing, but you couldn't question their effort of both teams, really. So it'll be interesting, especially because we saw at the draw control, Verhulst against Drexel, when we were calling, was amazing. She played unbelievable in that game, and then against this Rutgers team, she really was having trouble duplicating that, and towards the second. In the second half, we saw a lot more of Jaden Hampel in there, and it'll be interesting to see what Stony Brook decides to do against North Carolina because they definitely were struggling, and the draw control was going 50-50 today throughout really the whole game. So they were having trouble getting possessions, and with that defense struggling, Charlie bailed them out. So I'd like to see what they do at the draw control, who they decide to put in right away to start the game.
But guys,
it's a great point too.
This
Matt,
is
because
sorry. This is what happens when you get deeper into the playoffs. You get teams that are on equal footing. You get teams that you have to match strength for strength, weakness for weakness, or strengths to weaknesses, better yet. But Rutgers is a much better team than Drexel. Okay.
Yeah.
And Stony Brook is a much better team than Drexel. However, they're not necessarily that much better a team than Rutgers overall. Now, of course, they have players that can rise up in certain positions in certain occasions and save their bacon. I mean, the game that's going on right now and Ken Furman is sweating over, which is in intermission.
Just finished, man. Just finished.
It's over?
4-3 Rangers win. Panarin with the goal. What a beauty.
Oh, perfectly timed. Okay, so the Rangers advance. But this game tonight that was going on, just as we were going on air, okay, was a perfect example of two teams very close to evenly matched, taking it to the absolute limit in a playoff round. And, you flip a coin to see who pulls it out or, who steps up. And Artemi Panarin clearly did. But the great thing about it is Pittsburgh took leads and the Rangers kept coming back. So, it definitely proves some toughness there. And this, I think, too, was definitely the toughest test that Stony Brook has had so far, which everybody was wondering, cruising through the America East season and, beating up on a Yale team that really wasn't as good as they were. What was going to happen when they met their match? And they came close to meeting their match against Rutgers. They're definitely going to meet their match in North Carolina. But it also tells them that, hey, we can go toe-to-toe with these guys. We can go toe-to-toe with North Carolina.
Yeah, they definitely can. I mean, just listening to Joe Spallina, it's great to see kind of the leadership he has with that team. Obviously, during the post-game conference, he, mentioned how much he respects North Carolina, but they are definitely not afraid. And he said, and I quote, he says, "We're not going down there to lose." Neither team is obviously, but it'll be a great matchup. This was, he was expecting to play them eventually. He just thought it would be 2 weeks from now and not a week from now. He said obviously they thought they'd meet in the Final Four, but they were, we're going to meet either way, and that's just part of getting, winning a national championship. But it's going to be a lot of fun.
Here's
Stony
the
Brook
next
has
question.
the star power. I just want to, definitely have to win the possession battle and just tighten those things up on defense, because offensively, they have the weapons there to keep it close, and it showed today. When you got the ball to Massera, when you got the ball to Hart, when you got the ball to Morgan Mitchell, they capitalized. Hart she had 3 or 4 goals, I think. Massera had like 1 or 2 goals and 2 assists.
2 goals, yep. 2 goals and assists.
Yeah, they both, when, you started to see the Stony Brook defense start to sputter and the offense was looking a little stale, they were able to capitalize. That's what you ask for from your key players. They have the firepower on offense. They are able to keep up with any team in the country. It's just about shoring up their defense, and they just got to be able to win the possession at the draw control.
Yeah, which is going to be no mean trick against North Carolina.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the thing, North Carolina, you don't talk about the best. You look up and down that team, they got the best in essentially, everything. We talked about Jamie Ortega, tremendous goal scoring there. As I said, 64 goals. Draw control-wise, Ali Mastroianni is phenomenal. He's a graduate midfielder, 121 draw control victories this season. And right under her, too, is Emily Knowles, the junior defender. Their best defenders probably going to be pinned on Hart or more likely Massera. But right under her, too, 51 draw control victories as well when Allie's not the one winning it. And 42 ground balls scooped up as well. So, you have that two-headed monster to where, more often than not, you're winning the draw control because one of those two ladies are always going to be there on the ground and just cleaning it up, just vacuuming it into the stick and kickstarting that possession offensive drive for UNC. And it's going to be big for Stony Brook because we know how good Massera is, how great she is on a draw control. Her size as well. She's the smaller of the 3 names I listed. But as I said, she said it herself in recent interviews, is that her size, her shorter stature, makes it easier for her to scoop up those ground balls, win those draw control battles because of how close she is to the ground and the rolling balls. So that's going to be a big factor there. But also seeing Hampel and Verhulst, I think, really step up in the draw control is going to be a big difference maker. And looking at this game, Hampel and Verhulst both had 3 for the Seawolves, but they lost the draw control battle 14-8 as a whole. 9 of those draw controls were lost to Megan Ball, their Rutgers primary defender. So, we kind of saw here that, it needs work. And for them to really, I think, feel confident and really control the game as much as they can, it's got to be, as you said, that draw control battle and really just giving themselves more offensive possessions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they definitely have to give themselves those opportunities, and they just can't rely on Ellie Massera. They need some other, and Hart, really Massera at the draw control to kind of, get those ground balls, because Rutgers, they had both Ball and Kelly, Stephanie Kelly, I think, both played phenomenal at the draw control spot. They really both stepped up, and you saw it. And you can't put Massera everywhere. You can't put her outside the circle. Okay. You can't put her in the draw control. You can't, as much as you'd like to duplicate her all over the field, that you can't. So I think Joe Spinnerwell has some tricks up his sleeve. He's one of the best coaches in the nation. But yeah, it's gonna be a really fun game. I think a lot of people, just because of how well Carolina's played, is already kind of counting them out. I think it'll be a closer game than a lot of people expect.
A lot closer than today's game, where UNC mopped number 15 Virginia 24-2.
Well, this is what gets on my nerves a little bit, because the ACC sent 5 schools to this tournament, and Virginia was the 5th one, and they were 10-10 overall and 3-5 in conference. Yes, they did get by USC, which when starting to get suspect about the Pac-12 as well. But when I look at that, I see this and I said, and the Ivies for the men, we'll get into that momentarily as well. The so-called power conferences in lacrosse, I think, are still getting a little bit too much love, more than they deserve.
Everywhere, I think.
Yeah. Not just lacrosse. I think that the mid-majors, and this is one of the reasons why, I think the CAA is going. Well, CAA does send more than one team as it is, but yes, and they kick it out of the tournament and then brag about it when it gets there. James Madison, but who did, by the way, get stomped on by Loyola Maryland, 18-8. But the Elite Eight is set, and we should share it with everyone. Of course, North Carolina facing Stony Brook, 7:15 p.m. We're going to bring it to you here on WUSB by any means necessary. Maryland dumped on Duke, so 19-6. Another ACC team that beat Hopkins. We beat Hopkins. They will take on Florida, the 7th seed. They got by Jacksonville 15-10. And in the remaining brackets, you have Loyola Maryland against BC, the 3-6, and Syracuse Northwestern, the 4-5. And the interesting thing about Syracuse Northwestern, they are the only two schools that Stony Brook has lost to all year. And gets better, if the Seawolves get past North Carolina, they get the winner of Syracuse Northwestern.
I feel like if Stony Brook gets by North Carolina, they got to win the whole thing just because of how dominant UNC's been. Honestly,
this is the de facto final. I mean, this is like Knicks Bulls in the Jordan era. I mean, once and those series went 7, and they were as smash mouth of NBA basketball as you'll ever see. And whoever survived it, which was the Bulls. The Bulls would have an easy path through the finals and into another championship. The finals were a piece of cake after getting past the Knicks, and the survivor of that matchup, Stony Brook in North Carolina, is going to have a relatively easy path, I think, all the way.
As easy as it can be, because as you said, obviously Syracuse, Northwestern beat them, but obviously Stony Brook beats North Carolina.
But Syracuse only by a goal, and Northwestern by 4, and both are on the road.
I was going to say, you beat UNC, that means you found something to where you're going to ride that momentum, carry it likely to the finals, and probably a finals win, just because, as you said, comparing that Knicks-Bulls matchup, that's just how dominant UNC has been, all season long.
If you beat UNC, there's no reason for anybody else to beat you.
Right, exactly. There's no excuses at that point. And so we're entering as the underdog.
Yeah, you knocked off the best team in the country.
Favorite, exactly. And just for both of these teams, I think last year's matchup is important, even if the same names aren't necessarily there, just because there's a lot of familiarity between both teams. Obviously, on the coaching side, Joe Splina, Jenny Levy know each other so well because they're both head and assistant coaches of the national women's lacrosse team for the U.S. So obviously, they know each other very well there. And both teams that played each other last year, UNC took that 14-11. They extended their record to 20-0 before they fell to Boston. But that was a game where UNC really dominated the possession, as we said. Won draw controls for most of the game. Stony Brook started to come back in the end, which is when they started getting their momentum. And the Seals actually had a lead towards in that second half, but they gave up. I think it was 4 straight defensively, and that's just something you can't afford to do against UNC, because we know lacrosse, it's a game of runs, and you give the Tar Heels 1 or 2 and game's over. Looking at the game against Virginia today, they went on one run and just kept going. They didn't even stop, winning 24-2, 14 different players scoring goals. I don't see that happening against Campbell, who we presume is in net, and Campbell's someone who has experience, as I said, against UNC. Last time they played them, they lost 13-12, but still made 7 saves and allowed 13 goals. So, there's a lot of familiarity here, and that experience is something. We're talking about hockey earlier, right? And just the teams that are more experienced often advance more and more into the postseason because they've been there before. We saw the Islanders past couple seasons where they advanced to the semifinals,
conference finals,
in the bubble, conference finals
2 years in a row.
There you go. Exactly. Is that experience, as we said, Matt?
Matt Kearns, go ahead.
Yeah, me and Matt were talking about during the Drexel game about Stony Brook. During the first half they were having trouble, getting on that run. Me and Matt they just got to get on that run. Just got to and in the second half they started to put it together. And as you were saying against UNC. UNC can get on that run also. They're a team that, the teams that Stony Brook have played really don't have that, for them, a majority of them, don't have that ability. And UNC is one where, probably the easiest team to get on that run of any, obviously,
yes.
really. That's why they're the number one team in the country.
Exactly.
But,
they turn anyone on that lineup.
Well,
yeah.
The funny thing about that Drexel game, Matt, is that of course, Stony Brook came back with basically shut out Drexel for the entire second half. But I never considered it a big run because the goals didn't come in rapid fire succession. They basically just kept on scoring while Drexel ended up doing nothing. And yes, thanks to their defense and draw controls, but it didn't necessarily. It was more like a walk than a run, if you know what I mean. North Carolina, on the other hand, against Virginia today, that was a run.
Oh, yes.
Yes. North Carolina ran them over.
Yeah, he just dominated. That 22-goal margin victory, pretty sure that set the record, at least in UNC program history.
Well, also, that one-sided that deep into the tournament, and again, against the conference rival who you played during the regular season, and lost to, of course, because North Carolina is undefeated. Still, I mean, if you're Virginia, you're not happy. Besides,
you're Virginia, you're regretting letting Campbell go. You're thinking, oh man, if they'd stayed another year, it would have been a little bit closer for sure.
Yeah. So the stage is set. Again, the game will be aired here on WUSB, whether we do it remotely or go down there, but most likely we're going to be doing it remotely. If the Seawolves advance, however, it gets a little bit easier for us because I've done this before, because the last time the men were in the NCAA tournament, they played in the very same venue, Homewood Field on the campus of Johns Hopkins University. And it is the only time men's lacrosse has faced Johns Hopkins, 2012 NCAA tournament opening round, lost. But Homewood Field is the Yankee Stadium of lacrosse. So that if the Seawolves advance, we're going down there. Somebody's going down there, whether it's me, whether it's Matt Kearns, whether it's Greg Taylor, whether it's a combination thereof, whether Ken goes down. You guys are going down there because that is an experience devoutly to be wished. You must do a game from there because that is holy ground in lacrosse.
Especially for listeners, because it'd be the first time Stony Brook is in the semifinals in program history.
Yes, it would be the first time they broke into the Final Four, which is frustrating because they've had such great teams. But I mean, we've gone through the story over and over again here on the sports section about the low seedings and things like that. I don't really could the Seawolves have been seeded a little bit higher, possibly, but because they didn't have the benefit of a shot at an automatic qualifier, maybe that's why it knocked them down a little bit. Because I do think they're better in Loyola, Maryland, for example.
Yeah, Florida too getting hot. That was a big difference maker. Florida getting 3 key wins, including over Syracuse and Northwestern, which is a really difference.
Well,
I think Syracuse, actually, yeah. Yeah,
well, that's what kills you, because if you lost to Syracuse and Northwestern, and they beat Syracuse and Northwestern, there you go. And that's why but they got to 7, okay? So they didn't get a hell of a lot of love either, but they've been hanging around 10 in the rankings, and Stony Brook was solidly in the 5 or the 6. But exactly. That's water under the bridge. You're facing the number 1 team. You were going to have to face them eventually anyway. And if you do knock them off, the path to the national championship is clear. It'll be against your next opponent will be a team you lost to, because it'll be either Northwestern or Syracuse. And then you go up against
probably Maryland or Boston.
The winner of Maryland, Florida will advance, and the winner of Loyola, BC will advance. And Stony Brook has lots of history against all those schools.
Yeah. Especially in the playoffs. Yeah.
Yes. And it should make for some... And Maryland, oh boy. We can recite chapter and verse about the matchups of Maryland, but Stony Brook, even in their losses to Maryland in the NCAAs, played well. I mean, they played very tough games against Maryland. So, they were up to talent-wise, they're a match. But if you beat North Carolina, okay, if you beat the number 1, not only number 1 by far. Remember, undefeated going in to the NCAA, and if they beat Stony Brook, undefeated coming out. So
this is a team too that's won 32 straight home games.
Yeah, and you're playing them down there.
54 of the last 56
Well,
games
that's
are
what
wins.
happened with Maryland, too. Maryland hadn't lost at home in forever either.
Right.
And we almost beat them.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like when, the Maryland of men's lacrosse this year. I mean, it seems like every team almost had like, one loss, that was, maybe they should have, this year Maryland in men's kind of, ran through everyone. And it's kind of like, well, is anyone going to beat them? I feel like that's the same thing with North Carolina in women's. It's like they're running through everyone. Is there anyone that can beat them? Because, it certainly seems like they're, not guaranteed, but it feels like they're going to, get pretty far. So it's going to be curious to see who can step up.
You segue perfectly.
Yeah.
Because Maryland today beat Vermont 21-5. And this was a Vermont team that took it to us pretty good the final game of the regular season.
And won 15-3 against Manhattan to get into this game.
Yes, and beat up a Manhattan in the play-in, in the MAC champion. So
and Manhattan's a good team, too, yeah.
Great goaltending.
So, Maryland and Virginia in the quarterfinal.
That's
Virginia beat Brown 17-10 to advance. So Virginia, now this could be a similar situation to North Carolina and Stony Brook for the women. Virginia might be the only team capable of standing in Maryland's way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the rematch from last year's national championship. I mean, Virginia knows they got Maryland's number, and I think Maryland, as much as they've been running through everyone this season, they also know it too, that Lars Tiffany down there in Virginia, they can play. They can really turn it into that next gear when they have to. And they have the playmakers to do it with Schellenberger and Matt Moore and Cormier. They have dudes down there that can play. Mm-hmm. And it'll be really interesting to see how they come out and play because, we've seen this year that they can bring it to any team in the nation when, look at what they did to Brown in the first round. But then we also see that they can drop the ball this season like they did against Richmond. And it's like, which Virginia are we going to see? Are we going to see the national championship Virginia, the national champions from the past 2 years? Are we going to see that team or are we going to see the team that's going to, not come out and play? So it'll be really interesting to see because we know Maryland's going to come out and play. It just depends which Virginia we see.
Big upset also earlier today, actually tonight. It was a late game. Delaware beat Georgetown 10-9. So the 2 seed is gone.
Yep.
The 2 seed is gone. So Delaware and Cornell.
I saw that at halftime, and it was 6-5. Georgetown was like, man, Delaware's staying with them. The Blue Hens, they're not giving up, man.
Future CAA opponent.
Wow.
So they got Cornell in the Elite Eight. Cornell's a 7.
That'll be fun.
Delaware
I went to high school with a Delaware Blue Hen who's currently on the men's lacrosse team. They upset whom today?
Georgetown. Georgetown was the 2 seed.
Yeah, number 2 team. Yep.
Wow, I should have tuned into that.
Yeah, it's kind of
they
had the best defense in the country. Georgetown did, and I'll have to rewatch that the whole game this week because that'll be interesting. I really thought Georgetown would make it at least to the quarterfinals. Yeah, they had some really good players there. Wow, good for
Delaware. Drew Lankadis, he set up big 2 goals, 3 assists. Was a big part of that offense, obviously in midfield. JP Ward, of course, I thought he's been pretty good all season. A pair of goals. He took a lot of shots, obviously. Mike Robinson as well, that attack. One of the big scorers on that side.
Well, and thanks to overpopulating the bracket with Ivy League schools, Maryland, Virginia is the only remaining bracket that isn't featuring an Ivy League school because Cornell, of course, is an Ivy. They're going up against Delaware. Princeton got by BU, Patriot League champion, and Yale beat St. Joseph's only by 2 goals. So it's going to be Princeton, Yale in the 4-5. And then you got Penn, who just edged Richmond, as we were just talking about. And Rutgers beat up on Harvard pretty good, 19-9. And Rutgers, we only lost by we played with them end to end. Okay, so you got to be thinking about this when Rutgers takes on Penn. Rutgers is the 6 seed, Penn is the 3.
Yeah, I remember watching that game. That was
Greg and I called
it. Came down to the last 30 seconds of the game at LaBelle. That was an awesome game for Stony Brook. And
I think
thought,
it turned Stony Brook's season, I think, for the worse, because they had pulled that game out. I think the rest of the season would have looked a lot different. And a lot different to the possible point of getting in on at-large.
Yeah.
I mean, even just keeping it close like that, I thought they would be able to get some momentum to the, towards the middle and the end of the season, knowing, hey, we kept it close with Rutgers. It's kind of like how Notre Dame, even though they had a lot of losses in men's lacrosse, there weren't any like bad losses. Like they kept it close at Maryland, they kept it close at Virginia, they kept it close with a lot of really good teams. And I say, if Stony Brook can keep it close in these kinds of games and win the games they have to, it shows that they can play. And unfortunately, Stony Brook has some really bad losses this season. But I said that going against Rutgers and keeping it within one goal isn't a bad loss, and it showed that they.
And at the time, it wasn't.
Play.
But look what ended up happening. They basically threw away a game against Syracuse they easily could have won.
Oh yeah,
and Syracuse doesn't. Syracuse isn't there. They didn't make it. And Notre Dame was a real. Well, the biggest beef that everybody has had, and I think Matt, you agree. You'll definitely agree, is that the selection committee loaded the bracket with Ivies for no justifiable reason, which is why a school like Notre Dame ended up on the outs.
Yeah,
that might have otherwise gotten some love, because Notre Dame men is similar to Virginia women. Okay, Virginia women mid-pack in the ACC, a 500 record, 3-5 in conference, but they're in the toughest conference in the sport. But what the hell are they doing there? But they did win a first-round game. Okay, so what can you say? They won. So what do you do in that case?
It's tough because Notre Dame was hot. They blew out Syracuse at the end of the season. They beat Duke at the end of the season, and then they're out. It's like they were really getting hot at the right time. And you talk about a team that can really go deep into the playoffs. They have that experience. They have a lot of players on that offense, both the Kavanaugh brothers, Jack Avoyce, that kid Taylor. They have dudes that can play, and it was so frustrating because I really think they could have gotten in over Harvard. I don't really see Harvard being like I thought they played well. I thought all the Ivies played really well, but it was tough because you talk about teams that can knock off a Maryland or take it to a Virginia, and that's Notre Dame is one of those teams. Even though their record didn't show it because they did have a lot of losses at the beginning of the season, they were getting hot at the right time, and they have the experience and the players to go really deep and make it to championship weekend.
If you're in a power conference and you play the top schools in your power conference close, but not necessarily win, you'll even stay in the polls. You may actually get an at-large bid with a sub 500 record, because that's just the way it is. I don't believe it should be that way, because I believe that when you give a school like that an NCAA bid, you're denying some of the better mid-majors. Okay, let's say, for example, if Stony Brook was in the America East tournament and they went up against Vermont and played them close and Vermont ended up winning, well, Stony Brook's season would have been over. But under these conditions, both should go. And it's only happened once in the history of the America East since Stony Brook was in. It happened in 2007 when Albany and UMBC faced each other in the final and both went. And not, like this year where, one couldn't compete in the tournament. They actually were legit, the America East sent two teams. If you are having so much trouble filling slots that you basically dig the bottom of the barrel with the Ivies, then why not spread the wealth a little more? Send more CAA teams, okay? Send more teams from other conferences to the NCAA and see how things shake out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just looking at Harvard's schedule, and I mean, they have some decent wins. They beat, Michigan, they beat Brown, they beat BU, who made it in. They beat Princeton. So they had some good wins, but then, Notre Dame did as well. And I guess you look at the ACC maybe not being as strong this year and saying, because, even though Notre Dame beat Duke and beat Syracuse and kept it close with Virginia, even though, the ACC wasn't that strong. So they maybe thought that, obviously the Ivies were stronger, and they took that into consideration with Harvard. But it was interesting to see Rutgers really take it to them for 60 minutes today. They, I guess throughout the season they've really improved, and they have some ball players.
Yeah, this Rutgers team, 14-3 this season. I think it's program record. Yeah, definitely program record for them. But they played really good, and honestly, just watching them this season, they've won a lot of close games. As you said, a lot of those games where maybe you feel like they shouldn't win it, but they always find a way to pull through. Or more often than not, find a way to pull through. And this is a team, as you said, they've really stayed hot, I think, through a lot of the season. And when you're winning those close battles, it really fuels the team. And it was a big win against Harvard to win 19-9 in yesterday's contest. But they had a lot of great players on that squad that are staying hot, especially in that game. Ross Scott had 8 goals that contest, which was almost how many Harvard as a team scored in the game. Obviously, Cameron and Bartolo, both of them had a hat trick. Colin Kurst in goaltending, 17 saves. He's one of the best goaltenders in the nation. So, Rutgers, to me, they're a team I actually think could pull off at least one upset. I don't see them winning the whole thing, but to me, they're just looking at the brackets. You have Brown, Virginia, let me try this right, sorry. You have Maryland, Virginia, Delaware, Cornell, Rutgers, Penn, Princeton, Yale. And to me, Rutgers, Penn, I think Rutgers could take it. No respect to Penn.
Yeah, I was there last year when Rutgers played North Carolina, and they were a goal away from making it to a Final Four.
That's the thing, man. They play close.
They lost to North Carolina. I was at that game at Hofstra, and man, was that a really good game to go to. And man, did Rutgers play well. They took it to overtime, and it showed. They were for real. I thought Carolina should have beaten them much more handily than they did, and it showed. Rutgers had some really, you remember Kirsten between the pipes had an unbelievable game that day.
Yeah.
And I think that, it showed that this Rutgers program is really on the come up now. And they're ready to take it to the next step.
Yeah, that was last year, right? And look at this year. And Rutgers is at a 6th seed, one of the better teams in the nation. And UNC on the men's side they didn't even make it to the NCAA tournament. So it kind of was a preview there that showed, Rutgers is the team on the upswing on the men's side, and UNC was on the downturn.
Yeah, no, it was a tough break for UNC because, at heart I love my Tar Heels in lacrosse, and they had a great team that year. 3 senior middies. They had Tanner Cook, Will Anderson, and I'm forgetting the third kid's name, and they had Will Bowen, long stick defender, and obviously, Chris Gray on attack. And it was a great year. I really thought they could have made it to an NCAA championship, and it was a tough loss to Virginia. But, having a lot of players graduate, having Will Bowen transfer, showed the youth of Carolina. And I think right now they're in a bit of a rebuild. I think a lot of teams kind of saw that. I think Notre Dame a little bit. They had Kavanaugh, but they had a lot of younger guys coming in. You saw that with Duke, with Michael Sowers graduating, and trying to they have O'Neal and they had Montgomery, but it seems like I think Brennan O'Neal next year and the year after, I think you're going to see him take a really, really big step. He's been really consistent with them being a really great player. I think he's going to kind of turn into that.
Yeah, it feels like they're shaping him up for that leadership role for sure.
He is. He's going to be. I'm not. I don't bet, but if I had to, I think next year he's going to be on the top 5 to Wharton finals.
Ooh,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it was just.
They give odds on that.
No, not that I know.
They'll give odds on anything.
I would say nowadays for sure, especially with how many different options you get.
Now,
kind of just to wrap the talk, it's going to be really fun for both men and women's brackets. Obviously, just even the 1 seeds, Maryland, Virginia, Stony Brook, UNC. It's going to be a lot of fun because. Is that once you get to this point of the bracket, it's kind of like playoffs for NBA and NHL. The seeds don't really matter as much because both teams are so good. Up and down the line.
Yeah, but that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of deep playoff runs. You get to see the matchups, and you get to see who's got the one little bit extra, the little bit of Artemi Panarin that gets you to the next round. Okay, you got. Baseball. There is one other sport still playing right now, and it is baseball. And it was a good news, bad news day for the Stony Brook Seawolves. The bad news, they lost to Binghamton, lost bad. More bad news, Colton Book got rocked. Good news is that Maine lost as well, so Maine is still only 2 games ahead in the standings, which means that this weekend will decide the regular season championship.
Mike?
You see, I actually look at that last nugget as bad news because, I mean, today was a prime opportunity.
It was a prime opportunity to gain ground on Maine, no doubt about it. But the good news is they didn't lose any.
That's true, but with Hartford, being Maine's last opponent, I think it might be too late for Stony Brook. I know that Stony Brook owns the tiebreaker head-to-head against Maine. So
true.
By all sports rules, if Stony Brook and Maine finish with equal records, Stony Brook wins the regular season title.
Right.
However,
right now it's only symbolic anyway, but
I do not trust the America East to award Stony Brook baseball that title if the situation were to get to that point. I really do question their professionalism.
They gave Joe Spallina Coach of the Year because they had no choice.
They gave everyone a women's lacrosse.
Yeah, but they really had no choice. Yeah. You guys have said on this program, the women's lacrosse league, like the America East Women's Lacrosse League, is the worst in the nation. They had no other option.
Yes, it has one good team.
The America East baseball, they've got options. I think that they might not be done screwing Stony Brook baseball over so long as they are in the conference still. So if Stony Brook doesn't sweep this weekend and Maine gets swept by Hartford, which is inconceivable, if that doesn't happen, me and my trust issues really are dubious that they would award Stony Brook baseball the regular season
title.
Now,
here's where it gets a little tricky.
They'll UPS it, and they'll arrive in like 3 months or something like that.
Or it'll get lost in Dublin.
Yeah, they'll definitely not
FedEx
it.
But
they're not FedExing. That's for sure. So what were you going to say?
Now, the rest of the America East Conference, of course, you still have a little bit of a battle for seeding because 6 teams go, right? And Stony Brook is out, so Maine right now would be the one, and then UMass Lowell and NJIT are within a game of each other in the standings, so they're battling for the 2-3.
Right.
So, but NJIT is playing Stony Brook, so they've got something to play for against Stony Brook this weekend, despite the fact that they're in. They clinched a playoff spot. Binghamton clinched a playoff spot, I guess, with the win today, even though they're 13-14. So Binghamton and UMass Lowell are tied with 13-14 records, and you have NJIT at 14-13. So your seedings are still not quite settled yet.
Right. There's a lot of movement that can take place.
Yes, and as a result of that, Albany's probably going to get in by default, and then UMBC will as well because they're 6.
Wait, no, isn't UMBC in last place now?
But UMBC with Stony Brook out, there are 7 teams left, and Hartford would be the odd man out.
Okay, Hartford's in last place. Last time I checked,
Hartford's in Division A. They're dead last at 8-19. And they're 2 games down on both but they're only 2 games down on UAlbany and UMBC. So if they pull out a miracle against Maine, they could knock one of those 2 out.
Look, man, nobody's going to be bigger Hartford fans this week than anybody rooting for Stony Brook. I mean,
right?
It's a frustrating time of year when you don't win your division or league or conference, whatever the terminology is, depending on the level of sport that you are watching. That's a frustrating time for fans because you start out of town scoreboard watching.
Stony Brook would have the 2 locked down. They'd have the 2 locked down if they were going to be in the tournament.
Right, but we don't settle for 2. Not when we can't win the tournament.
Well, they have the 2 locked down and with a chance at winning the 1 going into the final weekend, which is not a bad place to be.
No, it's not a bad place to be, but I just don't. you would be more comfortable if Maine had to play, UMass Lowell or Binghamton or like a competitive team. I don't mean to diss Hartford, but competitive is not the word I would use to describe them. They're in a bad way. All those kids who got scholarships to play baseball, finding out that they're not even going to be getting those anymore. It's a tough situation.
Well,
Everyone
not getting
leaving.
them from Hartford anymore.
Right.
Transfer portal.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. And they're leaving. That's the point. That's a
Run
big
like
reason
hell.
why. Yeah, right, like a bat out of hell. But let's focus on the good stuff, because we're making it seem like, or I'm rather making it seem like Stony Brook lost this series. They did not. They took 2 out of 3 from Binghamton, split the season series 3 games apiece. Binghamton got Stony Brook at Joe Nathan. Stony Brook got Binghamton in Binghamton. So they returned the favor. I'm sure they would have liked to have won the 3rd game, just so that way they could say they ended on a high note, but I think they'll take 2 out of 3.
And
so,
Binghamton's always been an annoyance. They always find a way to throw a wrench in the works, and today was a perfect example of it.
Right, and they're a respectable baseball program. They haven't done the things that Stony Brook has, right? They haven't
They
really
haven't gone to the College World Series, but they've won almost as many American East titles as Stony Brook has.
Right, exactly. And head coach Tim Sinicki, right? Head coach Tim Sinicki and Matt Stank go way back. I mean, I would almost say they're friends. Are they friends, Matt? I think
yes,
you've spoken to Stank. Right.
But it is the great thing about the America East Conference is that it served the 3 top SUNY schools. Buffalo went D1 10 years before us, but the 3 schools that went D1 at around the same time, within a year of each other, all joined the America East at the same time, 01-02. And the America East served all 3 of them well, continues to serve the other 2, and helped Stony Brook, build up and move up to the CAA and, other and points beyond possibly. But
right.
The great thing about it is that prior to that, back when they were D3, we would occasionally play Binghamton or occasionally play Albany, but there was no real rivalry.
Right.
You didn't face them consistently. They were getting them in a conference together was the best possible thing that could happen for all 3 schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of them has gone on to be the redheaded stepchild, and that's of course Albany. But I guess Albany did beat Maine today. They deserve some sort of credit for that. But man, what a disappointment they are. Remember a couple of weeks ago when I was reading to you the batting averages of some of their players?
Oh,
and
yeah.
Contrasting it with their win-loss record.
Yeah, well,
check it now. It's even more despicable now. Check their batting averages. Go onto Albany's website.
Let's have some fun.
It's not just 250 anymore. Everybody's hitting over 290 on that team, and they're under 500 overall now.
Well, they can't pitch.
Right, they can't pitch, but they're not opportunistic. Like they'll hit a home run when losing by 8, but when there's a runner on third and less than 2 out, they're gonna whiff. Strike 1, strike 2, strike 3.
They beat Manhattan 21-20.
I know. They can go out and they could score on you, man. They'll win a track meet every now and then.
They lost to Hartford 12-11.
Exactly. I mean, they will engage in some track meets. They'll win some. They're going to lose most of them. It's a losing culture over there.
I read Maine 10-5 today.
Right, and I read John Muller's career record coming into this year. He's like 454 and 600. It's a losing culture over there. Let's not. It
means that Albany's athletic department doesn't devote a lot of attention to the baseball program, and we
fair
see
enough,
this
because they do have other good teams.
Look,
softball,
women's lacrosse for most schools in the America East is kind of the redhead stepchild there, except at Stony Brook, where we actually compete. So It's one of the reasons why Stony Brook keeps winning, keeps destroying the America East, because it is the only legitimate program in the bunch. But Albany did give Stony Brook a bit of run for their money, and they do devote some attention to it, but also depends on number one, what kind of resources? Now, Binghamton got a huge donation from anonymous donation, like $50 million, some crazy number like that. And you've seen the video coming out of Binghamton. You see their baseball facility, and it blows everybody. The only place that comes close to it are the minor league facilities at UMass Lowell in Maine. Because
I know. It's gorgeous.
They host professional minor league teams. Those are legit. And Binghamton's is on a par with all of them. Binghamton should be joining the CAA.
I was just about to say that, and there's whispers of Albany trying to join the CAA, and they have more of an in because they are in the CAA in football.
Exactly.
But they do not even they don't even come close to warranting the CAA
because they've not done across the board.
You have to do something in the America East before you leave it. They've done nothing. Again, they're the little brothers to Stony Brook.
This will make you laugh, guys. Okay, Will Brown, the longtime coach at Albany, he got them into the NCAAs a couple of times.
You said this. He was coaching
the Albany Patroons in the TBL, the basketball league, which they call themselves a full-time pro team. I call them semi-pro because they're below the G League.
Yeah, so, I say amateur pro or indie league or whatever.
Pro-am or whatever. But the whole point is they're actually – but just to give you an idea of what happens when you put a quality coach in a league like that, all their guys are from legit D1 programs. And this Connecticut Cobras team that I broadcast are all from D3 schools.
Well, if he was so good, why is he not still at Albany? So,
that's another can of worms.
Right. So,
but that's not all of him either.
Right. No, it's not. But yes, the moral of this story is that Binghamton is the superior of the two in-state rivals that Stony Brook has. And they played them this weekend in baseball, took 2 out of 3, split the season series 3 games apiece. Game 2 was the really exciting one. Tie game, top of the 5th inning. And who else but Matt Brown airing? I've not seen a baseball hit better than the one that he hit over the left field fence. I wish we had StatCast so we could see just how far it went, but he crushed that. That was a mammoth. And it's too bad that their dopey camera person ruined the home run by pointing the camera the wrong direction.
It was at center field and the ball was all the way left.
Oh my God.
I don't know how you missed that one.
It was all you saw were the fielders looking at left field. That was all you saw, but he did not miss that. Home run number 9 for him. 47 RBIs in 47 games for him. This is a guy who didn't play last year. And
this is a guy who also has sub 200 average in the first month of the season.
Did he? I remember him being afloat. I remember Brown airing being afloat for most of the year.
Really? Because I remember his average being relatively low early on. He really started to pick it up when the conference season kicked in.
Well, he kicked it into another gear once the conference season began, but I'm pretty sure he was around like 260-ish during the non-conference part of their schedule. He's a hitter. He's hit. Maybe he hasn't hit all season long. He's hit for 90% of this season. Again, 47 RBIs in 47 games.
That's amazing.
Absurd. That's absurd.
Yeah,
that's run bad in the game. Yeah.
It's video game type numbers. I wish I could average an RBI per game.
Well, you average an RBI per game in Major League Baseball. It's 162 RBIs. Who knocks in that many anymore?
Oh yeah, that
goes back to Lou Gehrig's era.
Right, that's just impossible. And another guy who's pretty up there in RBI count, especially after today, is Evan Giordano. It's
2 home runs.
It's a strange. Evan Giordano's a different situation because we know what Evan Giordano is, right? He is a great, not good. He is a great hitter. 2020, his sophomore year, he's hitting 368 when the season gets canned.
Most reliable hitter they've got, no doubt about it.
Oh, yeah. Right, and the most dangerous. When he's on his game, he's the best player on the diamond. Although I guess Brown airing is sort of challenging that notion. But but let's stick with the devil we know, right?
But Brown, you got a third baseman who plays the hot corner extremely well, and you have an outfielder who can play any position.
Right, and he is a third baseman. So yeah. I'm sure after Giordano graduates, whenever that may be, could be next week, could be next year. But when he graduates, I'm sure Brown Ehring will probably assume his natural position at third base. There's time for Sank to figure that out. But Evan Giordano is a guy who, again, raking in 2020, raking in 2021, hit .314 last year, led the team in RBIs with 39, most of it coming out of the leadoff spot. Had a couple of really big games against UMBC and Jersey Tech last year. Had the 2 home run, 5 RBI game against UMBC that I was in attendance for. He had a great year last year, and we talked about him ad nauseum. This year, we haven't really mentioned him all that much. No. Like we've name dropped him for sure. I make sure that I hit my Evan Giordano quota once a week by just naming him, right, as part of the quote-unquote sexy six. But other than that, we haven't really told his tale. I mean, he's actually having a better year this year than he did last year. And he was first team all-conference last year. As of today, he's hitting .325, .438 on-base percentage, .580 slugging percentage, OPS over 1,000. 10 home runs, which is a career high. First Seawolf to hit double-digit home runs in a very long time. Might be like Mike Wilson era. 11 doubles, a triple, 41 RBIs. Is not too far behind Brown Ehring. He's only grounded into 1 double play. He swiped 8 bases as well. Plays a solid third base. I mean, he has his defensive lulls, but he's a reliable third baseman. I trust him over there. He is just otherworldly. I want to get him on this program. Maybe sometime this summer. He is something else. He's a machine, guys. He rolls out of bed and hits.
Absolutely, as you said, he is a hitter, and especially for a team obviously early on, they were looking for that. He's a guy who just brings it, and his opponent. Is he lead the team or is he like second, third? I think he's up there, right?
What? And what's that?
And just hits, just total hits.
Well, hits, I'm pretty sure Paradigm's got. Yeah, Paradigm has him by 1.
Yeah.
There's a 1 difference between 1, 2, and 3. Paradigm 56, Giordano 55, Brown Ehring 54. But obviously, it's not just hits; it's productivity. I mean, Evan Giordano has 11 more RBIs than James Paradigm does.
Not only that too, but for Giordano, he's great as he hits. Draws a lot of walks as well.
Right, reaches base. Yeah, 31 walks and 6 hit by pitches. I mean, he's no Evan Fox, but
he's just a guy who knows how to get on base. He does it so many different ways.
He's a monster, and he can hit anywhere. Last year we saw him batting leadoff. Was leading the conference in RBIs from the leadoff spot. Fell into a bit of a slump. Sank bumped him to 3, and of course, traditionally the 3 hitter is your best hitter. Batted 2 in the playoff series. In the tournaments. Remember, he had the walk-off hit against Albany from the 2 spot. He's batted cleanup. He's batted 5. This year, when he broke out, he was batting in the 6 hole against UMass Lowell when he had the game-tying home runs in back-to-back games. He was doing that from the 6 hole. So you could stick him anywhere, and he's going to do his job. He's finally been inserted back into the leadoff spot these past couple of weeks, and we
even saw that in Wednesday, and Stony Brook lost this game in Sacred Heart 8-7. But he was a guy where he came in, he actually grounded out, but he still was able to draw in an RBI, and all of a sudden it was in the 9th inning, and it kind of sparks. It was in the middle of that, but Stony Brook starts to rally offensively, and they're able to get 5 runs on the board. And they make a 8-2 game, come an 8-7 game. It wasn't enough to win, but it's just that it just keeps the wheel going, and he's been instrumental in Stony Brook's offense this season.
Right, he would be. They're not going to be losing a lot of guys this year like how they did last year. But if he decides to graduate, which I don't think he will, I heard that he renewed the lease on his house. But if he decides to graduate or transfer and get his graduate degree somewhere else and continue to play baseball like Johnny Tuchillo did, if he leaves, they're going to be hurting. They have plenty of bats, but he's in a different league. He's going to go first team all conference again this year. So
yeah, and like I said, with the bats, they got it, but just someone who just so consistently gets on base. That's the big thing. Someone who's able to start that.
He's elite, because consistent is subjective, right? Like Brett Paulson is consistent. Brett Paulson hits 280. But Evan Giordano consistently hits well over 300, 400 on base, 500 slugging. Top tier in homers and RBIs. He's elite. He's consistently top tier. Yeah. And you don't want to lose him. You don't want to lose him yet. I know that they have a lot of guys who can swing it, but I still don't think that they're prepared to lose him yet. And the other amazing thing about Evan Giordano, Joe Nathan, typically a hitter's park, he hits better on the road. Just look at his road. The last 3 road trips, the one at UMBC, the one down in Newark at Jersey Tech, and now this recent one up at Binghamton. He has torn the cover off the ball away from home. So, yeah, he's...
You really think Joe Nathan Field's a hitter's park?
Well, so the dimensions are that of a neutral park.
The gaps are deep.
The gaps are deep, but seeing the offense that I've seen there in the last 2 years... I would say it's hitter friendly. Yes, I feel comfortable.
It favors a certain type of hitter. That I'll give you.
Sure. Okay. Right. But Sank does recruit to his team's strengths.
There's no doubt about that too.
And deep gaps also can, like you just said, I guess it's subjective. Deep gaps can actually be a hitter's park, right?
Yeah.
Like San Francisco, the Giants I'm talking about. You would call that a pitcher's park, but however, when Angel Pagan or Gregor Blanco or someone like that hits the ball up, quote unquote, triples alley, it becomes a hitter's park.
Right. Know? Well, but here's the thing: when you took Shea, for example, was considered a pitcher's park,
right?
Largely because yes, it had big gaps, it had a very spacious outfield, and of course, nobody racked up huge offensive numbers in it. Remember, for a long time, the Mets' all-time home run record was 39 in a season by Darryl Strawberry. Then Hundley broke it with 41.
Yeah, Beltran tied him, and then
yeah. But for the longest time, nobody hit 40 home runs for the Mets, and their highest batting average was 340 until Olerud broke that.
Right, and they really haven't come close since either. So.
Exactly. So the Mets have lived and died on pitching their entire existence. Yankees the opposite. But Yankees favor left-handed hitters because there's short porch in right field. And Boston favors right-handed hitters because of the Green Monster.
Stony Brook baseball has fluctuated historically. We've had really good pitching staffs. We've had really good offenses. Sometimes we have them both at the same time.
2012, you had everything.
Right, 2012, last year, but right now this team is an offensive team, obviously.
For sure.
And
with the pitching improving.
The pitching is improving, and yes, Colton Book got hammered today. I actually think that's a good thing. It's not good for his stats. It's going to destroy his ERA and his WHIP for the rest of the year, and it's going to, on paper, look like he had a bad year.
That's one of the reasons why I made the conscious decision to throw out overall stats. Look at his last few outings.
Right. Yeah, there's an outlier there.
Yeah.
And Colton Book, this is going to be perfect for his development because this game really didn't mean anything. Yes, I know we want to win the regular season title. They had a chance to gain a game on Maine today. They didn't, so you could say it meant something, but it really didn't mean anything. They're not eliminated from the playoffs because of this performance. This was not Tom Glavine, game 162.
Oh boy.
Right? So
thanks for that one.
You're welcome.
It's loved by Braves fans, reviled by Mets fans, and not because of what he did for the Braves.
No. But this is not Tom Glavine, right? This is good for his development. He's had the success. He knows what works. He knows who he can pitch to. He knows what pitches work. He trusts his teammates. He's had really good moments, and now he's had a bad moment. Now he has adversity to face. Now he has something to bounce back from. It's humbling. It's good. Take this into the offseason. Take this into the summer league. Be a little pissed. Come in with a chip on your shoulder. Maybe next time you face Binghamton in a non-conference game, or God willing, Binghamton moves up to the CAA, you remember it, you throw a no-hitter against them, right? This is good for him. Facing adversity is good. Dealing with adversity is good, especially when you've already shown that you can have success. If you haven't shown that, right? If you have a 10 ERA and then you get shelled rather, you might be in trouble. Colton Book is in no trouble. This does not jeopardize his future as a starter here. This does not shorten the leash on Colton Book. It's just a minor setback for a major comeback. And take it from his teammate Josh O'Neill, who was the winning pitcher the day before in Game 2. Josh O'Neill, since March 22nd, has pitched 10 games, started 1, came out of the bullpen in the other 9, 4-1 with a 2.7 ERA, 1.25 WHIP, 3 saves, and the Seawolves are 8-2 in his 10 appearances, and have won each of the last 5. Okay, this is a guy who started the season in the rotation, could not throw the ball over the plate.
Nope.
Had a 5-walk game, had a 6-walk game. Awful. He was awful early on.
He was only lasting about an inning or 2. Like against South Florida and Old Dominion, didn't make it past 2 innings.
Oh my God, he was hard to watch.
Oh, I got
since
a
March
nickname
20
for Colton Book now, because I realized I looked at his bio. His hometown is Manheim, Pennsylvania. The Mannheim Steamroller.
The Mannheim Steamroller. Okay,
Mannheim
maybe.
Steamroller is the name of a band.
Well, Colton Book, I could think of several good nicknames, right? Colt 45.
Yeah.
If you're an announcer, you could say like "read him like a book." There's several things.
The Mannheim Steamroller.
I don't know if I'm getting on with that, but
We gotta ask him when he comes on the show in summer.
what I'm trying to say is Josh O'Neill has had a career resurrection in season, right? He dealt with adversity, made adjustments, sped up his delivery. He's thrown strikes. He's gotten a lot of swings and misses. He's been very reliable, and he's played himself maybe into a potential starter role next year, right? So Colton, he's got to learn from his teammate. Just look at Josh O'Neill. Whenever you're struggling, look at what he did. Look at how he bounced back. He just bowed his neck. He kept working, and he salvaged a really good year. Screw the overall stats. The overall stats aren't good for anybody in that pitching staff, okay? Doesn't matter. It matters what you do towards the end of the year. It matters how you finish, not how you start. It matters that you bounce back from adversity. Colton Book, you've got some adversity. Turn to Josh. You're going to do just fine, Colton. We're all right. And also, Matt, you did say that the pitching is improving. It's not just those two. It's not just Colton Book and Josh O'Neill. I mean, Quinlan Montgomery, who had a bad day today, had a great day on Friday, right?
He's the last 5. Yeah.
He's and remember, he was hurt. He had the forearm issue, but he's a different guy based on the day. Sometimes he's lights out. Sometimes he's awful. Today he was awful. Friday he was lights out. He's had lights out starts. He's been lights out and awful within the same game. If he can find that consistency, whatever the adjustment has to be, whether it's his control, whether it's speeding up his delivery like Josh O'Neill did, whatever that might be, if he can figure it out, he's a great weapon, because when he's on, he's unhittable. Remember his first 3 innings against Albany? Remember how he pitched last Friday? When he's on his game, he's a lethal weapon. He's another guy really giving really giving Matt Sank some good stuff to work with for next year. And then, of course, Brandon Lashley, too. Brandon Lashley had a bad start on Saturday, but he's had a good finish to his season. We will, if he can figure out whatever works for him when he's pitching well, if he can figure that out long term, he'll be a very good pitcher. I think Stony Brook's got some good problems. Consistency is something that can be solved.
Right. That's something really this obviously end of the season, the off season definitely helps out with, is them really finding that, as you said, that consistency and how they get carry that into the CAA.
Yeah, and the reason why this part of the season is so important for the Seawolves pitchers, I've said it several times, you're playing yourselves into roles for next year. Mm-hmm. But also, these guys are D1 athletes. That means that they're playing summer ball. Yep. Right? So you want to carry good momentum going into summer ball because you want to have a good summer season. So if they continue to pitch well, right, extend it into the summer, pitch well then, you're looking at a pretty good pitching staff for next year. Maybe they won't be as good year one in the CAA, but you're looking for a much better pitching staff than the one that they...
Well, the summer leagues are crucial. And I will take you back 10 years to Nick Tropiano and his year in the Cape Cod League. His summer in the Cape Cod League from between junior and not junior and senior, his second from last and last year, and the improvement he experienced there, so much so that he got drafted. And a lot of guys played in the Cape Cod League that year. Cantwell did, and a few others.
Jankowski was the MVP.
Yeah, exactly. And matter of fact, thank you, because next time I see Jankowski this week, I got to ask him about that.
You're welcome. Have him ask him on the show.
Well,
How
that's
does that
the other
sound?
thing. That's the next thing. I'm going to talk to him. He'll definitely say yes, but because it's in season, I have to clear it with the Mets PR people.
Right.
I'm very busy, obviously, representing those guys.
Yeah, well, now that you set that up brilliantly, because remember that quote? Matter of fact, I might actually have it here.
Nobody's buying my jersey.
Nobody's buying my jersey, okay? And I even said to him, a lot of Stony Brook alumni are going to be buying your jersey at the very least.
Oh, yeah.
And then what happens, was it today or yesterday?
Today, yeah.
It was today.
I guess it was today. I thought it was yesterday, but it was the shirt jerseys. The jerseys.
Yeah, the shirt jerseys come out, and all the guys are wearing them. It's great.
Jankowski 16. And we got to get Jankowski 6s. We got to get. Do they sell like Stony Brook Seawolves merchandise? Can you buy a Travis Jankowski Stony Brook jersey anywhere?
It's a good. Well, if you called up Matt Sank and said, "Who makes who's your contact with whoever makes?" I don't know who their jersey maker is these days, because they don't see the logos and everything like that. I mean, Mizuno had done it for a little while, and Nike, and they changed contracts in mid-year in 2012, which is what it was. All kind. Wilson had it for a little while. Yes, and of course the names aren't on the jerseys, so put any number
but you know
on.
who number 6 is. Number 6 is not Eric Foster. No disrespect, Eric.
Right, but
number 6 is Freddie.
The trick, and the other thing too, is if you notice that among the Seawolves wardrobe, they come very close to approximating the lucky jerseys that they wore in the 2012 run, the red ones, the red with the red Seawolves script. Mm-hmm. They started wearing that in the America East tournament, and because they kept winning with it, kept using it all the way through Omaha.
Yeah, you can't change it. You can't even change your underwear when you're winning like that.
Exactly. But the result was that became their most famous jersey. As a matter of fact, the Stony Brook Orthopedics, they, of course, take care of all the athletes, and they're also taking care of my father after he broke his hip. They had one. They had one, and I know because it had the old America East logo on the sleeve. From 2012. I forget which number they had though. I don't think it was anybody, any of the starters. I think it was just a random number they had lying around. But they had one up on the wall from 2012.
Yeah. And as we were talking about, to start that was, you said, big reason. Part of the reason for their success obviously was, that summer league, those summer leagues they had. Yeah.
Well, that's what scouts look at because of the wood bats. So. Right. So
and, we even saw it for guys on this team. Derek Yellen, for example, Paradigm. Obviously, he's always playing. He was in Hampton's Collegiate baseball league, and he's had a great season so far.
Yeah.
Josh O'Neill as well. Ben Farrow had a great game on Friday.
Yeah, Ben Farrow's really had a good year. I know what the numbers say, but Ben Farrow's had a really good year for Stony Brook. He's been their most dependable starter, and I wonder what his plan is. I wonder if he's going to take his 5th year. If he takes his 5th year, it just gives Matt Sank another good problem to have. Yep. You're going to have about 5 to 6 guys vying for the 3 starting spots.
Yeah. What? These problems, as we always say in sports in general, let alone baseball, these problems have a way of solving themselves.
Exactly.
Because somebody gets hurt, something happens, and the 5 guys you had ended up fitting into all 3 jobs.
Right.
Yep. Right. I I kind of look forward to just next week. As you said, regular season's going to wrap up, and obviously still a lot of bad blood there between NJIT, Stony Brook,
Right.
And that's something too. Just to ask you guys, just bring Matt Kearns back in, and see you as well, Mike. Is what is it like? First, just that final season, or rather, the final series of the season. What are the emotions getting into that? Just both in general, and obviously for Stony Brook. But number two, what is it like when you're essentially facing your biggest rivals, and there's a lot of animosity between both teams?
Well, so I'll answer question number one first. So you always want to end on a good note, no matter what. You want to win this series more than any other series, just based on the fact that it's your last. And for some of these guys, it is their last. Some of these guys who we don't know yet, but some of these guys are going to transfer or graduate or retire. So you're going to be getting the best effort from both sides, from Jersey Tech and from Stony Brook. So you definitely, the emotions are going to be a little higher, just because, hey, there's not going to be another 2022 season. So yeah, the emotions will definitely be higher. But then also, as you touched on, Jersey Tech, Stony Brook, they don't like each other. They hate each other, right?
It's not breaking news. It's pretty evident. Check social media.
They make no secret about it. They don't like each other. Jersey Tech is really they're less than classy about their from their side. They're very provocative.
NJIT on Twitter, they mentioned, this upcoming series is a big series, and this is one where really there's not much on the line in terms of playoffs and things.
Well, for them it is.
That.
They have seeding to play for. They're
seeding. That's it. But
they're in. That's the thing, and they're still treating it, like this is what we should have gotten last year.
Right, and Stony Brook wants to spoil it however they can. They obviously can't knock Jersey Tech out of the playoffs, but they can potentially give them the lowest seed possible, and that's going to be their goal. They tell you our goal is to go out there and win, doesn't matter who we're facing, but that they would totally love to just see Jersey Tech squirm and
knock them
cry.
down to the 4. Yeah, easy.
Exactly. And it's going to be I'm more than confident that this will be the last time they ever face each other, because again,
it's gonna be a while, I think.
Matt Sank said it himself. He's dubious that the America East and Stony Brook Athletics will ever be willing to negotiate a non-conference game. But I also don't see Jersey Tech moving anywhere anytime soon.
No,
New Jersey Institute of Technology does not have a good athletic program. Just look at all the other sports. They do not have a good athletic program.
It's improving, though. I mean, they're putting money into it. They're getting. Well, first of all, you got to remember they were D3 back when we were D3 in the Skyline Conference. They didn't upgrade.
Now, what I'm trying to say is that they're not a year away or 2 years away from moving to the CAA.
Not even close.
No,
that's true.
They're the 2030s. Right, and also.
Close.
Well,
and let's acknowledge this too. The New Jersey Institute of Technology baseball team is mediocre. They are. I mean, we are giving them a little too much attention. We're giving them attention because they're the next series, and this is our duty to talk about the next series. But let's not overrate them. They're under 500 overall, and they were under 500 in conference play coming into this weekend. They're not that good. And they weren't that good last year. Remember, they were just the beneficiaries of bad weather. Right? I mean, it doesn't get any more lucky than that. So it's the same exact team as last year. Very mediocre. Stony Brook already took 2 of 3 from them in their own backyards. Stony Brook's going to be energetic. They're going to be pumped. They're going to be locked in this weekend. It's not a weekend. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It is bumped up a day, but whatever. This week, I really think that because of how locked in they're going to be, because of how emotional they're going to be, they might sweep this series. I'm serious. They might sweep this series.
Love to see it. And I'm going to see it because, we're going to try to get both games in Thursday, because it's Thursday afternoon, and we'll segue right into the lacrosse game. But Friday and Saturday, Friday will be right after commencement, and Saturday, just be a freestanding game and on a deserted campus. But that's what it was like in 2012. Well, actually, not even just 2012, in every year, because it would be like Memorial Day weekend for the America East Tournament, and the NCAA would be the first weekend in June. And I remember them coming back after the Super Regional, coming back to Stony Brook and having a little gathering at the Island Federal Credit Union Arena. And there were some people there, but not a lot, because the campus was deserted. Everybody was gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't think it's like too much of a factor, but you're right. Is that that fan base isn't necessarily going to be in full force, because things like commencement, obviously, you're going to take parents.
Well,
but even
actually,
students,
the great thing about it is Friday would be a great time, and believe me, on the air, we're going to beat that subject to death, because I will have some influence over it. That stick around, stay on campus, go watch the baseball team. It's going to be a great game today.
Yeah, and I'm sure that day we'll have, like, this week will probably be the most populated, because, again, these parents, it might be their kids' last ever game, so, or series, rather. So I'm sure a lot of families will come down to see it, or come up to see it, depending on wherever you're from, right? But also, there's girlfriends of the players who are graduating. There's just roommates, friend. Well, I guess they're roommates with each other, so that's a null point. But there's friends, just on campus, miscellaneous friends, not on the baseball team, other athletes. There will probably be a lot of supporters, a lot in a relative sense, this weekend. But yeah, if we had a more into it athletically fan base as a school, I'm sure that the stands would be packed, and there would be people, without seats, standing, leaning up against the fence down the right and left field lines.
I think you might see that anyway. I mean, it's not going to be
Friday,
Alex Box Stadium at LSU. Okay, that place holds 10,000, and during the Super Regionals in 2012, it was packed, but they packed that for, LSU, they pack whatever building they're in. At Tiger Stadium, you can see it from, just beyond center field. But the great thing about that, they're an SEC school. They've got their fans in their purple and gold. They follow every little thing they do, which is great. I wish we were like that, and someday we might be.
So do I. Yeah, right. Well, again, if we were like that, we probably wouldn't be discussing it right now. We would just say stands are going to be packed. Last year, the turnout that we had. What's up?
The other problem is that we talked about Binghamton, right? And their big, beautiful baseball diamond now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have been surfing some of the athletic sites for the CAA, and particularly the southern schools like College of Charleston and VCU and some of those other ones. Oh my God. Are we going to be in for some culture shock? Because instead of just having one or two schools like in the America East that have good facilities because minor league teams playing them, everybody does. Yeah, it's going to make Joe Nathan Field look like Ward Melville Field.
Ward Melville Field is nice, though.
Yeah, but
I like playing on Ward Melville's field.
I hate to say it. Look, our football field, Ward Melville's field, was nicer.
Yeah.
See, the old Seawolves field, it was not as good as most high schools on Long Island even. But you're going up against and you're recruiting against schools that, number one, play longer schedules and play in warmer weather, and number two, have better facilities. And Joe Nathan Field, as a field, is great, but it needs to be Joe Nathan Stadium.
Yeah, this is an issue down the line, obviously. Just this week, I think that we're going to have a turnout similar to the postseason last year. I think that the America East tournament, all the people that showed up last year, it's probably going to be a carbon copy. But even that is still not enough, But whatever, that's a problem.
It's going to be a loud crowd, though. For sure.
It will definitely be a loud crowd. Have you heard the Jersey Tech parents?
We need a pet. We need, so watching that NHL playoffs. We need a penalty box. Throw some of these people there.
No, I mean, I think we're in disbelief of how disrespectful and chirpy Jersey Tech is sometimes, but
I would say more
they get it from their parents. The parents bring the energy to the stand, and it's not a positive competitive energy. It's like a toxic,
Hey,
my son can do no wrong.
They're a very motivated fan base, and they
That's
see
one way of
NJITs
putting it.
They see, as you said, they see NJITs doing no wrong. So in
Right,
that
other
sense, they're
than
going
losing
to
more
defend
games
them.
than winning.
They're going to defend them to the end of the back, as we heard last year in a lot of our broadcasts.
Yeah,
And we even saw it in the away broadcast.
I think we even had to
NJIT Stony Brook.
Yeah, we even had to give warnings out over the air. We can't control if the crowd curses.
Yeah.
Well, a few of those flying. Yeah.
Well, that's just baseball. That's just sports. But
Yeah.
regardless, I think you're going to see several things this week. You're going to see the most emotional performance from Stony Brook baseball you've seen all year. You're going to see them win the series. Sweep, I'm not going to guarantee. I think they can. I think they might. I'm not going to guarantee it. I am going to guarantee. I am pretty sure that they're going to win the series. And you're going to see some nastiness, too. You're going to see some nastiness.
Both teams didn't forget. That's the main thing, right?
Yeah.
Both teams didn't forget. And I mean, just from last year, just the last series, the last time these two teams faced off back in late April, early May.
For sure. And you know what else you might see too? Remember Brian Herman and Chris Hamilton went to the home series against UMBC. I don't know exactly where Hammy is right now. Sometimes he's in Florida, sometimes he's in Boston because he's a Red Sox fan. I think you're going to see some Seawolves alums, as in recent Seawolves alums, show their face. Guys who were involved in this rivalry just a year ago. I think in the stands you might see, maybe a Sam Turcotte sighting or a Brian Herman sighting.
I'll tell you this too. I mean, the other thing that I think's been working against us is the weather has been abysmal.
Yeah,
the last home,
but they've won. They've won
butts
despite
off.
of it too.
Well, no,
so.
the team has performed well. But
Right.
in terms of attendance, and in terms of seeing the stands, in terms of broadcasting, oh my God, it's been horrible.
That's true.
The weather's been really bad, but we're past it, fortunately, and supposedly the weather's going to be in the 80s.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
I mean, we had a lot of fun in late April, early May last year because we had decent weather and we had alumni. I mean, the story with Max Tissenbaum I forget who it was, one of the current Seawolves hitters, getting hit by a pitch and getting called back. And I recalled the story.
It was Brett Paulson.
It was Paulson. Okay. And I recalled the story of it happening to Max Tissenbaum in the Super Regional, and all of a sudden he's sitting right next to me. Mm-hmm. So I put a headset on and tell the story.
Tiss has been there a couple of times this year. I would be disappointed in some of the Seawolves alums for not coming to their last series. This is their last series in the America East. Remember this, guys.
And I talked to Jankowski about it. It's the 10th anniversary. What are they doing? Mm-hmm. And I think they did have a couple of guys appear during halftime of a lacrosse game, if I recall, but that's nothing.
No, yeah.
I mean, the 10th anniversary of your athletic program's greatest achievement, and you've done nothing.
Yeah, it's a little. Well, you know what? Luckily for them, homecoming is still going to be during the year 2022.